Hello and welcome to the long-awaited Hungarian tech tree for World of Tanks. This tech tree is probably the closest new nation to come to World of Tanks, but I'll show you my vision of it anyway. I want to thank 𝐓𝐸16 for allowing me to use his insane renders of his Hungarian tanks, which I'll use in the tech tree. There will be 4 lines, although I've made 2 of them up, but I guess that's still admirable amount compared to Poland and Italy. Anyway, there will be 2 medium lines, 1 heavy and 1 tank destroyer. So without further ado, let's drop into the lowest tiers. At tier 1 we have 𝐓𝐸1. This is just a tankette with a 13mm machine gun. At tier 2 we have Strosser V3, which is essentially a prototype to the V4. At tier 3 we have 𝐇𝐮𝐧𝐤𝐬. The 𝐇𝐮𝐧𝐤𝐬 would be composed of various variants. At tier 4 there's Turon-1, and it is very much the same as the 𝐓𝐷𝐵𝐧39, so the Czech tier 4. At tier 5 we have Turan-3. It's not the prototypus one, and it's pretty much the same as the premium prototypus, although it would use a Panzer IV gun and just would have okay DPM and accuracy. Although the tank destroyer at tier 5 would be the 𝐇𝐮𝐧 PV, which is a tank destroyer based on 𝐇𝐮𝐧. It would use either a 75mm gun, uptuned as in previous videos I've talked about with the logic of Wargaming tier 5 tank destroyers recently, or maybe it could use the Hungarian 80mm and make it a 170 alpha variant? Maybe that would sound more interesting, don't you think? The gun itself was used on the Nimrod, and the Nimrod was also based on 𝐇𝐮𝐧. That's the logic. Alright, so let's go further. At tier 6 we have 𝐻 Prototypus. It was supposed to be based on Panzer III chassis. According to the Hungarian Wikipedia, it would have, I don't know, probably some longer 75mm, as it was supposed to be with the prototype of the 𝐻. But the armor probably wouldn't be this much. Maybe it would be better than the VK3002 a little, so it could stand a chance against tier 4s. The gun would be 120 damage with 135 standard pen and 167 gold. The gun itself would be very pleasant unless you meet something with armor. That's the thing about the Hungarian tanks, that it would be. They would be insanely pleasant except for the penetration. They would have everything top notch. Also, it would be quite mobile, I'd say. It would be around 50 kph with 16 horsepower per ton. At tier 7 there is the 𝐻, the aforementioned 𝐻. It's pretty much the same concept as Italians did with making their own Panther, which ended up as their tier 8. So it would be just like the tier 7 German Panther, I guess, except it would have a little more bigger gun, an 80mm, dealing 190 damage per shot. Frontal armor also would be a little bit better. It would stand a chance against tier 5s, but it would still be inferior in terms of mobility compared to the German medium. And at tier 8 we branch off. We have 2 medium lines from now. So I'll cover up the first. It would be a tech tree of autoloader mediums. So at tier 8 there's 47M. It's based off T44 probably, because there wasn't T55 at the time. And it uses an autoloader 88mm, so there's the thing about Europe to use up the older guns that remained after war. The autoloader itself would have poor penetration, although it would have a large clip of 6 shots with 2.5 second intra-clip. The magazine itself would also load quicker than it would seem. The penetration, as I've mentioned, would be poor. 195 standard AP and 233 gold AP. I know tanks used to have even lower penetration, and it's not this tragic, but remember that it's modern World of Tanks, and nobody wants to play 190 pen, unless it pays off with something else. As I've said here, the gun would have a 6-shot autoloader, and autoloader would pretty much have like over 1200 potential damage, so that's a thing. You can basically one-clip entire tank. It's not like the French heavies still, but you know, it's a medium. It actually has some mobility and camo. Okay, so at tier 9 we have 48M. In the 𝐶arozzi's tech tree, from which I have the renders, it's called 48M Project 100. I will call it just 48M, as the 48M Project 88 looks far too different, and I think it's a far different tank. Even if it was designed in the same year, I would call it differently, so there is no confusion, because, like, you know what I mean. I know there is T-34 and T-34, but let's just get to the point. It would use a 100mm that would hit for 260 damage, so that's pretty much low, but the thing is that it would have 2.25 second intra-clip with, again, 6 shot. The accuracy would be, as I previously probably mentioned, it would just have a pretty fine stabilization, so that would be a thing for an autoloader actually, and the accuracy itself would be decent. So the goal is to make the gun as pleasant as possible, except for the penetration.
В ушах звенит.
Now at tier 10 we have something special, 61M. I'm not even sure if this one also wasn't made up, because this tech tree, I thought it would be the most non-made up. So it is a Straussler chassis with T55 turret and gun. The gun would probably use the APDS, so that's APCR, as standard ammunition. Although maybe to keep the consistency it would be just AP and APCR, just like in the previous tanks. The gun would hit for 300 damage, yet again. Standard penetration, no matter if it would be the APCR or AP, would be 240, so that's not a lot. And the hit pen of 300, which is a lot. And if it was APCR, it would be like 207. The autoloader would have 6 shots, with 2 second intra-clip. Yet again, armor wouldn't stand a chance against anything, especially considering that at tier 8 there is more and more premiums, and premiums usually have good penetration at the time. Oh, but it would pay back with its good mobility. So I think this vehicle could be like the TVP, but on steroids. Alright, so let's cover up the second medium line. It would branch off at tier 8. There's a dispute. We could either put the 48M Project 88 as a tier 8 and call it 46M to make it distinguished from 48 and 47M, or we could just put in here the Tash 2 with a long 88, but with different stats as the one from 47M. You may decide. Like, I think these are pretty much equal, and we could just scrap Tash 2 and make it into the top variant of the Tash at tier 7, as I've said before. No matter if it would be Tash 2 or the 46M, they would both use an 88mm. It would be a kind of a smooth transition from the small damage gun to the line, because this line would be assault mediums. Yet again, I really like the idea of adding more assault mediums into the game. And I've got to admit something. This line I've made up. Basically only tier 8 is somewhat historical. Okay, so the tier 9 is T547. I made this medium tank up, and it's supposed to be somewhat of a mashup. The turret that looks like from the IS-4 and a hull with a pike nose. Oh, I drew it some time ago, and I think that it could be useful in this tech tree, so let me know what you think. Now at tier 10 of this line there is also another tank that I've made up, but this is supposed to be like a futuristic 1960s tank that was supposed to be cutting edge, and you know. It is called Dutra 514. The gun is 110mm, and the armor layout is somewhat of a pike nose, but like imagine Object 257 but even wilder. You can just see on the video below on how wild it would be. It would put to shame most of the heavy tanks to this kind of assault medium. Alright, so maybe let's cover up the tank destroyer tech tree. At tier 6 we have 𝐤𝐤𝐬. It's not neither 𝐤𝐤𝐬 1 or 2 or 3, because it would be all of the 𝐤𝐤𝐬s combined into one. The vehicle itself would be pretty much like the Basotto, so basically you have a small tank destroyer with a big gun. At tier 7 we have Tash PV, or PV. And it would be just basically a TASH, but with a superstructure and a gun. I think this one was actually like, at least there was a draft of it. At tier 8 there is Arpad, so basically a TASH 𝐓𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐻, or how it is pronounced, but a little bit improved. And it's still nothing special, just a normal sniper tank destroyer, but the fun starts at tier 9, where we have MBT Prototypus. It's a main battle tank designed by Straussler. If I remember correctly, it was originally for the British, and it probably would play like an STRV 103, except for this one you are actually obliged to snipe, instead of having the ability to fight on close quarters. Here you probably won't have the enough armor enough, you know. You can only snipe in it. So maybe if this thing would release, then people would realize that 103 can fight on close distance or something, I don't know, probably not. And at tier 10 there is the proper Straussler MBT, which would use the English L11 120mm that you can notice on various British heavy tanks. As you can see, the siege bomb mechanic would be used in here for the tier 9 and 10, but I'd like to ask you on how would you balance it out? Maybe nerf the guns a little bit and I don't know, because if this thing is an 103B without armor, then maybe it should have something more. Sure, it's got more alpha, but I'm really curious to hear your opinions and ideas. Now, I thought that this tech tree would be too small and the video would be too short, and I had a cool idea. So I've made a Hungarian heavy tank tech tree. Entirely fake, entirely made by myself. From tier 6 up to tier 10. So yeah, I can tell you that this tech tree would be like pretty much very fat mediums. So the armor would be like pretty resistant to vehicles of the same and lower tiers, but not exactly like, for example, the same tier tank destroyers or other heavy tanks or higher tier vehicles. And yeah, so basically imagine like E50 line plus 277 and make it like 90-ton tier 10, like similar to Tiger 2. So prepare yourself for this alternate history contest I made in Sprocket. So yeah, you've just witnessed the tier 6 and tier 7. And tier 7 looks just like a Tiger modified, and it would use a 100mm gun. Now at tier 8 we have this vehicle, 45M Pustito. The idea is that they made an after-war wannabe Tiger, just like the French. French also didn't ally with Germans, and they still copied the Tiger. It would use a 105mm gun, and it would be the first vehicle in the line to have the gimmick of a gas turbine. It would work just like on the CS63, and during the use of the gas turbine, the vehicle would be, well, pretty quick, and it would be a great rammer, because it's basically a heavy tank that would go like, I don't know, 60 kph, just like a medium, but the DPM would be pretty tragic. So that's the kind of thing. And you also would have even worse camo, so it would be visible like a light bulb or like a lighthouse even. At tier 9 we have another post-war vehicle, 51M Voros Okol or something like that. I thought of it to be somewhat of a PZ-55, so pretty much more Soviet style. And it's got a 110mm gun. So similarly to the previously mentioned Dutra 514. And at tier 10 we go back to World War II. We have 44M Absolute. Now you may make jokes that it sounds like this vodka brand or something, but yeah, I made it up, so you can. It is basically a 90-ton medium tank with a 128mm gun. What can I say more? Imagine E50, but even heavier, and in some particular circumstances a bit quicker. Yep. It also has armor to withstand a lot of tier 10s, 9s and basically any tier 8 at front. Imagine that. I think that would be a very cool addition to the game. Who cares about some stupid overpowered cooldown tanks? This tank would literally, like, promote you for bravely rushing the enemy. And I have 3 ideas for premium vehicles. First one would be a premium wheeled light tank of tier 3 that would like come for free if you were already playing the game when the 3 will be released. It would be the 𝐓𝐵𝐴, the infamous Hungarian armored car with its stupid little gun. At tier 8 we have 45M 𝐤𝐵𝐴. Yeah, it's pretty much another made up tank, but I made it up like far earlier. 𝐓𝐵𝐴 CS801. I think that it would be like not really related to the sniper tech tree. It would be just like very no armor howitzer tank destroyer, so it basically poke and give someone a hit for 700 damage or something like that. And that's all for the tech tree. Make sure to share it, make sure to rate it and to like roast me in the comments that I've got some historical thing wrong or blah 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 blah.